Chapter 3 Ships and Donkeys. The doctor was cheerful about Jim. Concussion. That was what ailed him. A little more rest would put him right. Within another day, Jim's old impish ways were returning, and it was hard for Mrs. McCracken to keep him in bed, even with marvels like picture books and a stereoscope to look through. When a picture was put into the stereoscope, it made the people look so tall and so near they seemed to be walking out towards him. Sydney was exciting and bewildering, with so much to see in the streets. Mrs. Small took the boys out to buy new trousers and jackets. "We can't go to another home looking poverty-stricken," she said. Cotton print was bought too, and Mary Ann made dresses for Emma and herself, with help from Mrs. McCracken on her sewing machine. Emma watched by the hour and wanted to poke her fingers in the wheel, for she'd never seen a sewing machine before. But there was no success in the search that really mattered. The search for a ship. True, the harbor was full of ships, but every one of them was tied up for a long time, or privately chartered, or carrying cargo only, or bound for some impossible place like China or Peru. Mrs. Small went the rounds of the shipping offices, and Mr. McCracken, who worked in a bank, used all his influence. Then Bill and Jack were sent to the wharves to ask of the seamen, but there was no passage to be had, and soon there were only 3 days left before Stephen Small would come home and find them gone. He would saddle his horse and ride, and even the great city, with its hundreds of houses, might not be enough to hide his family. On the 4th day, Archie, who hated being in the big house, even with a cannery on the veranda, asked if he might go and find a ship. The others thought this a great joke, as if ships could be found hiding under leaves like snails or spiders. Archie shrank inside, went silent, and ran off without permission. When he did not come back, Bill and Jack were sent to look for him. Round broad streets and narrow lanes they went asking if anyone had seen a 9-year-old boy with sandy hair and blue eyes. But people only said no. But surely he was old enough to ask his way home. And for fear that their own father might soon be asking these very questions, they did not like to say that they came from the outback. They had almost decided to go back when Jack stopped short. "Listen, Bill, it's a donkey." "In Sydney? Don't be daft." "But it is. Look there." They looked down on an empty section filled with tall grass and weeds, and saw not one donkey, but 4 of them. The braying came from one grey fellow who was being beaten by 2 men in vain effort to make him move. There was a big, dark man in a blue and white striped jersey, and another in a sea jacket. The more they yelled and swore, the more stubborn grew the donkey. "Huh," said Bill. "Archie could do better than that." It was a prophecy. From behind a stump, overgrown with creepers, appeared a familiar figure. He stood beside the smallest donkey, a white one, stroking it and talking softly. Soon he had it walking quietly. Bill and Jack, moving closer, heard Archie say, "Where do you want them to go, mister?" The man in the striped jersey swung around. "Who in tarnation are you?" Archie grinned shyly, not knowing what to say. "You meddling limb of Satan!" shouted the man. "Aren't donkeys devils enough?" Archie's grin vanished, but he went on stroking the donkey. The man in the sea jacket stepped in. "Whisht, Robbie! Dinna curse the lad. We could maybe let him show what he can do. Try if you can move her down the street there, laddie." "Bill," whispered Jack, "this looks like fun. Let's go too." Bill nodded. "There might be a shilling for us, but take off that sling. It doesn't look right." Jack winced as the arm swung free and dragged at his bruised shoulder. But he said nothing except a quick, "We'll help, mister. We're his brothers," without waiting for an answer. Soon a little procession was moving down the hill. Even the stubborn grey donkey, with the 2 men urging him, followed on. "Where do you want them to go?" called Archie. "To the wharves," answered the man in the striped jersey. The wharves! With wild excitement leaping inside him, Jack cut in, "Are they to go on a ship?" And Bill and Archie held their breath for the answer. "Yes, a ship. Pedigree stock they are, special purchase for the Armenian." The Armenian! The boys had not tramped the wharves for nothing. We have seen her. She's a capital ship with engines. Aye, said the man in the sea jacket. But we want to get these beasts aboard afore those engines will be any use at all. A bold thought began to grow in Jack's mind. Stockmen. They might need stockmen on the ship. The Armenian lay alongside the wharf, not at anchor in the harbor as the bigger sailing ships usually did, because she had this very modern feature. An engine! 60 horsepower, no less. She was square-rigged too, and the wind would carry her much faster than her screws. But the engine made her more easily handled in harbor, and for this reason she was given the proud title of steamship. She was well appointed too, with fine cabins for the gentlemen and ladies, who were all on shore somewhere until near time for the sailing. Obediently, with Archie and his white donkey still in the lead, the animals went up the gangway and into their pen for the deck. There were large stalls, too, in readiness for larger animals, horses. And now Robbie and his Scotch companion, whose name was Dougal, found that it was not enough to offer the boys a shilling for their trouble. They all said no, that this was not what they wanted. What would ye be wanting, then? Asked Dougal. To look after the donkeys on the voyage, said Bill calmly. The two men looked at one another as if they didn't know whether to laugh or not, and the big man winked. Oh, you'll be running away then, will you? That's right. And the wee laddie too? I'm not wee, I'm 9, said Archie. Dougal ignored him. And your mother and your sister? I don't doubt, said the sailor sarcastically. 2 sisters! Jack could not help grinning. And Jim! Shouted all the 3 boys together. The gentle rolling of the ship seemed to break into a mad rocking with their burst of laughter. When at last they recovered, Dougal said, Will that be the lot now? You haven't a father, maybe? No, mister, we haven't any father, said Bill. Our mother's a widow. We have to look after her, Jack added quickly, thinking this might help. Dougal was at once sympathetic. Ah, poor laddies. But will you now be scared to travel on a ship with Indians? Indians! They had no idea what an Indian would be like. Are they black men? Aye, black or brown, maybe. We're not scared of blacks. We had them working on the farm when we had our father. But is the ship going to India? Mrs. Small might refuse to go to Victoria, but she would like India no better, Bill felt sure. To his relief, the men laughed loudly at this one too. No, not India. That's where we have come from. Is Armenia a country? Asked Archie shyly. Aye, Armenia's a country, but she won't be going there neither, said Robbie. She's bound for Littleton, New Zealand. New Zealand! How do you like the sound of that, laddies? Dougal looked keenly to see what impression he had made. He expected that all this nonsense would end with the mention of a country so small and far away. But only Bill showed a flicker of disappointment. Jack said at once, We like it. Where's Littleton anyway? Seeing the men choke back their laughter, he didn't wait for an answer but hurried on. We are very experienced with stock, sir. Donkeys, cattle, horses. There'll be horses, 55 of them, tomorrow, and then we sail. Well, you best ask the boss. He'll be down soon, I dare say, to see the donkeys are in good shape. They're wanted for the breeding of mules, for the whole country's tipped on end with rocks all over the place, and nothing else can get over them. And you'll best mind your P's and Q's, for he's a famous gentleman, a judge that has thousands of lives in the palm of his hand. In the Indian troubles, you'll touch your cap when you meet Mr. John Cracroft Wilson. I haven't got a cap, said Jack. More's the pity, for this is him coming now, if I'm not much mistaken. The judge looked perfectly at ease on a splendid Arab horse rode onto the wharf. As he reined in, a brown-skinned servant wearing a white turban appeared from nowhere and scuttled down the gangway to take the bridle. The 3 boys looked nervously at one another. We'll speak for you, laddies, said Dougal kindly. He'll maybe look for a few white questions among all those heathen Hindus. And I can tell him truly you were awful good with those donkeys. End of chapter 3.